Welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. I'm your host, Deborah Chantry-Taylor. I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs and their leadership teams get what they want out of business and life. On the show, I invite successful business owners and expert speakers to share their successes. They are open and honest about the highs and lows of business and also life as a business owner. We want to share those learnings with you to inspire you, but also to help you avoid some of the common mistakes. My hope is that you take something from each of these short episodes that you can put into action to help you get what you want, not only out of your business, but also your life. So good morning and welcome to another episode of Better Business, Better Life. Today I'm joined by Duncan Shand, who is the founder of Duncan Shand, which was originally a digital advertising agency, but in more recent years has switched to a full-service, independent, integrating advertising agency. Did I get that right, Duncan?
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here, Deborah. It's nice to catch up, even though we have to do this virtually.
I know, it's a bit sad, isn't it? But so we first met, many years back when I was actually teaching at the Marketing Association, isn't that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that was many years ago. So I think back in those days, you were just starting out on that sort of huge growth of the agency. I understand you've now got about 35 staff. So you've kind of reached your goal in terms of being able to
Midpoint.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. So before we get started, I'd love to hear about, where the journey that you've come along, because I know you've had a couple of interesting challenges along the way. But before we get started, professional and personal bests, what would they be for you, Duncan?
Oh, look, personal, professional and personal, personal, really, I'm a late runner. So I turned 50 a couple of years ago. Yep. And my brother had signed up to do the Auckland Marathon, and he kind of challenged me to kind of do it with him. And, basically the conversation went along the lines of, look, if you don't do this with me, you'll never run a marathon in your life. Doing a marathon at 50's kind of got a good ring to it, doesn't it? Yep. And so after being baited for a while, I took up the challenge and I ran my first marathon at 50 and actually loved it. So I'm not really a natural runner, or I wasn't a regular runner, but I've actually really enjoyed running, and I've done three since, or two more since then. So I've run 3 marathons. So running marathons would be my personal goal. Yeah. Professionally, I think developing Young Shand into a really strong, credible, integrated creative agency would have to be up there on my list of things that I'd put on that list. I'm really proud of what we've kind of achieved at the agency. Yep. We punch above our weight. We got listed as the 4th best creative agency in New Zealand in the campaign Brief Asia, the Work Awards. 4th best doesn't really sound like anything to kind of get excited by, but when you're comparing us on that list to people like DDB and Colenso and others, I'm pretty happy to be up there as number 4 amongst a sea of agencies in New Zealand.
So completely agree. Hey, so before you decided to start Young & Shand, what were you doing before that?
Yeah, so I was a corporate marketing guy. So I've had half of my career has been client side in businesses like Air New Zealand, a biotech company, ICP Bio, and I was general manager sales and marketing at iHug, one of the original sort of challenger ISPs that a few years ago is now it's all been brought by Vodafone, so that brand doesn't exist anymore. So I was a marketing guy, working in clients before I had a period after iHug where I just kind of did consulting, and I worked on sort of marketing, branding, marketing plans and online consulting projects. And it was really in that period where I just kind of got hooked by this online marketing thing, and all my work came from the online. After 2 or 3 years, all my work was in the online marketing space. And that kind of coincided with the GFC. So no one had any money to do big brand ads. And everyone thought that this dream of digital marketing being cheap, free, and driving results is something they should explore. So I had too much work to handle. And that's kind of really when Young Shand started.
Wow. Okay. So it literally was just you as a consultant. It started to grow bigger, and you started employing people. So
Yeah.
take us on the journey. Tell us a little bit about, where that was. How long ago was that?
11 years ago.
11 years
So
ago. Okay.
I started the business with a guy, Ben Young. So we founded Young Shand together. And, really the first 5 years was really, really strong growth. That was the heyday of digital marketing. We started with two of us, and we'd grown it to probably 40 people after 5 years, maybe 50 people after 5 years. And we hustled hard. I think in that first 12 months, we did something like 200 or 250 proposals to people, and that's a lot of coffees and a lot of meetings. But through that period, we managed to pick up, probably 5 or 6 foundation kind of clients that really drove the growth of the agency over that 5-year period, including people like Goodman Fielder, Watties, and Lion New Zealand. So they were great brands, and they really helped underpin and sort of build the foundation of the agency.
Okay. So that is quite large growth in quite a short period of time. What were the sort of challenges in that time period for you?
Well, it was really just kind of keeping up with the work, and I guess it was evolving, and probably over the end of that 5-year period, probably the biggest challenge we had was realizing realizing and questioning whether just being a solely focused digital agency was the right strategic move for the future. So that was a kind of a fundamental challenge for us. And we had one of our brands at Lion kind of just stolen out from under our feet by DDB, who we'd taken the business off originally, and then they pulled it back, kind of 3 years later. And they'd gone through a process of learning and understanding digital after they realized digital marketing wasn't going to go away. So that was a kind of a fundamental shift for us, was navigating and recognizing how we needed to adapt and change as that kind of marketing landscape kind of changed around us.
Okay. And in terms of people, how did you choose? Because when you're growing quite quickly, you have to get people on board. How do you go about choosing the right people to join?
Yeah, well, having the right team is really important, and without a doubt, we're in a people industry. We are nothing but a group of talented individuals trying to do extraordinary things to transform our clients. It's kind of what we do. So without extraordinary people, you're not going to be able to do that. So bringing really good people into the team was important. I think in the early days, one of the challenges that we had was it's hard to bring really experienced people out of other agencies when you're a new upstart agency yourself, right? Because there's a lot of risk associated with that. So one of our challenges in the early days was we had a very young staff. So we had no problem hiring juniors, hiring young, talented graduates. And, one of the things we learned very fast was, you give a young, talented grad an opportunity, and they work hard, they're smart, they get on with things. So we had no shortage of youth and exuberance and intelligence kind of on the team. And, I guess we looked for that X factor when we're hiring. We looked for, we always had clear values established in terms of how we wanted to operate. So we're looking for people that could kind of live those values. We had a vision of where we wanted to go. People were excited about joining. But I guess one of the challenges at the time was lots of people that had lots of enthusiasm, but not necessarily a lot of experience. So that was definitely a challenge that we had to manage.
So how do you overcome that? Because I hear you. I mean, I've taken on a few young grads myself, and they certainly are hugely enthusiastic and super smart. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need a bit of grey hair to know how to handle certain situations, to know how to deal with people. And worse, sometimes people just expect to be dealing with an older person. There's that whole ageism thing kind of going on. So
absolutely. And I think while we were a new agency in digital, that youth was a positive, right? Because people were looking at digital and going, okay, these guys are new. They've got a young, dynamic, smart team on board. They know what they're talking about, right? So that was an advantage for us. But I think as we transitioned from, I guess the choice we had when we realized that we couldn't just survive as a digital agency was we could choose to stay digital, but then we'd more become a production partner for people that were wanting to implement things. So we'd really become a tech shop, and agencies would be coming up with ideas and we'd be implementing them for them. So we could choose to do that, but that wasn't really appealing to anyone. We wanted to have a seat at the lead table. We wanted to be making decisions. We wanted to be helping brands decide where they wanted to go. So the other choice we had to make was elevating and really becoming a full service creative agency.
So that's a pretty massive kind of pivot though, isn't it? How did that?
Well, huge pivot, huge pivot. And so, it didn't work the first time round. So we tried it the first time round with our existing team, with the enthusiastic young team that were kind of, we're willing to give anything a go. But, that lack of experience on how to make a fully integrated campaign, how to do television production, we all thought, oh, well, that's just easy. It's nowhere near as hard as building a website. A website's code. This is just film. So, we had an unrealistic expectation of how hard some of this stuff was, and a team that didn't have any experience on how to do it. And then in a few cases, clients that weren't really that forgiving or nice. So it was really, the first time round didn't work. So we kind of retreated, tail between our legs, and said, actually, no, we just want to be a great creative digital agency. So it didn't work first time around because of the inexperience of the team.
And what impact did that have on you as a founder? Because obviously for the team it would have an effect. What about you as the founder?
Well, it's definitely challenging because, you grow up with a vision of, we are going to be the best at this in our heads. So, I think it's like anything. You go on a journey. You have to understand that the world is changing, and I think you have to accept at some point that you're going to have to change with it. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. So sometimes you just have no choice. So you have businesses sometimes have to adapt if they're going to survive, and that's. We had a go, it didn't work. We thought we could retreat, but we very quickly realized that no, we just had it wrong. We didn't have the wrong clients. We didn't have the right team on board. Actually, strategically, it was the right move to make. We just didn't execute that move at that time right. So the second time round, we brought in more senior people that had been there and done that into the team to complement the kind of youth and enthusiasm with some experience and knowledge.
Excellent. Okay. And so I suppose just one quick question going back to the first time it didn't work. How did you know? Because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we can really keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing and hoping that's going to work out. But there has to come a point where you go, actually, this does not make any sense and I do need to change. Do you remember what that point was? What was the nail in the coffin, or whatever you want to call it, that sort of made you go, okay, this is not working, I need to change?
Yeah, I think, Dan Phillips, who was in the business for 8 years, he was really our, kind of third partner. He always had an expression saying, we're only doing this for one of three reasons. We're doing it for fun, fame, or fortune. So if we're not achieving one of those three things, there's no point doing this. Right. And I think really it was a realization we'd made that move. We were trying to reposition the business to make us, I guess, more famous or be a credible player. Mm-hmm. We weren't doing work that we liked. It wasn't any fun, and we weren't making any money. In fact, we were losing money doing this. Yep. So, it didn't tick any of those criteria. And really the big thing was it wasn't any fun. We had an agency that was kind of formed on a really great culture and spirit. We were excited to come to work, but it had gotten to the point where we were beaten down and it wasn't fun. So it was kind of at that point where we realized this isn't exciting. This isn't fun. This isn't working. And we need to make a change.
Perfect. Okay. And obviously that change you've managed to execute successfully now.
Yeah, and it's a never-ending journey. It takes time. We brought in a woman, Emma Dalton from Y&R, and she really started to set in place a kind of move to a new integrated creative agency that we are now. We subsequently brought in Scott Maddox, who is as a creative director, and then Anne Boothroyd. Anne's amazing. So, we've promoted her to be our executive creative director. So she's really elevated our creative capabilities. And then literally end of last year, we brought in Andrea Long to head up our media team, and Ryan Sproul to head up our strategy team. So now we've kind of got 4 really strong leaders. So, this real last shift has really been in play for probably 3 to 4 years, but it's taken till the middle of last year for us to kind of have all the building blocks in place to be really confident about our offering today. Sure. So, these things take a while.
And so now that you have got those 4 strong leaders and you've got the right people in the right seats, what difference has that made for you, again, as the founder of the business? And
well, it's, I think, you always want to bring in people that are smart and smarter than you into the business. And, my whole team have got way more advertising experience than I have. I mean, I never worked in an advertising agency. I was a client-side guy who started a digital agency. Yep. So my team are strong. They know what they're doing. And they can basically run the agency without me. So I don't need to be in the agency day to day. The kind of key roles for me are around, working with the team to set the direction and our plan on an annual basis, working with our key clients from a relationship point of view. Emma looks after all the day-to-day. I don't get involved in the day-to-day work. I'm interested in seeing the day-to-day work, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day work. And then also new business, talking to new business owners, understanding their challenges, their struggles. I mean, what I like, our purpose as an agency is to transform and grow the clients that we work with. And I get excited by, talking to business owners and just understanding what their struggles are, their challenges are, and understanding where their opportunities are that we can help them kind of transform and grow.
Yeah. We talk about in EOS, if you can delegate and elevate. So you have the right people around you in the right seats, you can finally delegate that stuff so that you can elevate to the things that you really love doing with the people you love doing. Would you say that that's where you're at now?
Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there, Deborah. I think there's still a journey to go on. Yeah. So Emma's recently been elevated to be general manager. She looks after the client service team. So she still looks after the client service team, but she does have day-to-day responsibility for the running of the agency. So she's trying to step up and I'm trying to step back to allow her to kind of elevate and grow. And that's a transition. And we're probably, that happened less than 12 months ago at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. Gosh, I can't even remember when the actual date, I think it was the beginning of this year. Yep. So, that is a journey. And I think I'm probably we're halfway through that journey. Still more work to do.
More to come. Fair enough. And so if people who are listening in who are kind of going through this growth themselves, what would be the sort of 3 top tips that you might give them to help them on their journey? Is there any sort of, things you've come across that you go, wow, that really changed the way that I built the business or my personal life, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think it might be a bit trite, but I think as business owners, we have to be brave. We have to set some big goals and not be afraid to set some big goals. I think New Zealand business owners often can get caught up in the day-to-day and get caught in the day-to-day running of their businesses. And it's finding that time to step back, think bigger, and set some brave, lofty goals, and then articulate those, share them with the team, get everyone to buy into them. So they become real. They're not real if they're just living inside your head. They have to be shared. So I think being brave and thinking big would be my first one.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I kind of relate that to our current situation with our COVID plan at the moment. It's like, I think that if people can understand what the plan is, even if they don't necessarily completely get it or completely agree with it, if it's written down, if it's articulated, if it's communicated, people can get behind it.
Absolutely.
And then they understand when it changes because they're told why it's changed. But if you haven't actually got it out of your head, it's useless. Yeah,
Absolutely.
nobody can read our minds yet. Okay, so be brave and think big. Love it.
Yeah. I think accepting that we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
So no one gets it perfect. The road to success isn't a straight line. We've had lots of up and downs as an agency. We got up to 40, 50 people at one point. We're at 35 now. But we've got 35 stronger, more senior people in the business than we did before. So there are ups and downs along the way. And I think as long as you can accept that, you're not perfect as an owner and the leader, listen to feedback from others, learn from failures, and put plans in place, and that adjust and kind of can adapt. That's a good thing.
And how do you sort of stop yourself from beating yourself up? Because, we do make mistakes and things do go wrong. How have you personally sort of stopped yourself from, taking that and taking it all on board as being a failure yourself?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think, I kind of come across there's almost two types of people. I always look forward. I never look back. But, some people do get caught up in the looking back and getting hung up about why we didn't do this or why we didn't do that. When you're in that moment, in that point of time, the only thing you can do is think about where you want to go and the next steps that are going to get you there. It makes no difference to anyone dwelling on or beating yourself up about a decision that got you where you are today. As long as you can learn from that lesson and then make the right next steps and adjust, then it's about moving forward. So, I'm always looking forward.
Yeah, I must admit, I agree. I mean, I've had some pretty massive mistakes in my life, if I'm honest, but you have to just kind of go, well, that was what it was. What did I learn from it? How do I make sure I don't do it again? Okay, last, third and final tip.
Look, I think it's make sure you surround yourself with great people. And the only little twist on that I'd put in is, when you are interviewing, make sure you have a lens so that you don't get caught up into the hiring people just like me trap. I think we all have a tendency to hire people like us. I know in the early days we had a lot of white. Not middle-aged, but white lads around the office because I could see myself in them, and I go, "Yeah, great, come on board." But we hired a woman, Courtney, who looked after our sort of HR stuff for a while, and she really just held it up to my face and said, "Hey, it's not a lot of diversity going on here." So I think it's very easy to kind of to get hung up and kind of hire in your own image. So I think, making sure that you are making a short list, that you're including others, whether it's sex or ethnicity. We always make a concerted effort now on our short list that we have to have diversity in our short list. And sometimes we've been proactively hiring to recalibrate the diversity in the office. I think that's really important. So hiring great people and hiring a mix of people.
Sure. And I suppose I was talking to Sam Stubbs the other day, and he was saying that they actually get all of their staff involved in kind of interviewing people and to get that diversity of interviewing as well as just diversity of people. What's the process that you go through with your people, and how do you make sure? Because, you've got values and you can say to people, hey, are you brave? And they go, oh, yes, absolutely. But how do you kind of sanity check that to make sure they're not just
saying it? It's hard. I think you've got to have, obviously 2 to 3 interviews, with anyone, and interviewed, as you say, by different people. For certain roles, we actually ask people to do a bit of a project and do a bit of work because we want to actually see capability. Because it's one thing to have skills on your CV, but it's another thing to be able to demonstrate. So we often give people an exercise or something to do. And we often do a bit of a group interview at a final stage to bring to allow the person to kind of meet some of the wider team, because I think an interview is a two-way thing. I think people need to buy into us, and we can tell them how exciting the office is and how great the culture is. But if they hear that from other people and give other people the opportunity to have a bit of a chat to them and raise any flags, and that is an opportunity for both sides to raise a flag and to either proceed or not on a hiring basis. So I think it's having 2 or 3 interviews first until you're certain, having someone do some work, so to show you how they work, and then having a more of a social interview that will often pick up some of those cultural traits and cultural aspects then.
Love it. Great. So what's next? What's next for the agency?
Well, look, I think, we just want to get through this lockdown and get to Christmas. I think for us, we've got a really good foundation in place now. We've got a really strong team. We're really focused on helping our clients find the sweet spot, kind of between creative human-led ideas and leveraged digital smart. So kind of bringing that newness of that kind of creative agency and that heritage of the digital agency, bringing that to life. We really want to work with those mid-market New Zealand brands that are really ambitious and want to grow. I mean, that's what gets me out of bed every day, is I want to help New Zealand brands that are kind of either taking on the big multinationals or exporting or just growing, because that's what I want for the business and for my kids, is a more dynamic, more exciting New Zealand commercial environment.
Completely agree. Well, that's fantastic. So if anybody's listening and would like to chat to you, how would they get hold of you, Duncan?
Well, they can just Google Young Shand and they'll find youngshand.com. They'll find my phone number on the site, or they can find me on LinkedIn, just Duncan Shand on LinkedIn. So. Wonderful.
Hey, look, it's been really good to catch up with you. It's been a long while, so I'm looking forward to perhaps catching up once we're out of this lockdown again.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing all that with us. It's been really interesting. It's really cool to see that, the growth of the agency and the ebbs and flows, but that you've now got an amazing team on board. I actually know a couple of those people quite personally myself. So, I know that you've got good people. Look forward to seeing where it comes to next. And thank you for your time.
Cool. Thanks, Deborah. It's been great to chat.
Yeah, thanks very much, Duncan.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again for joining us on Better Business, Better Life with me, your host, Deborah Chantry-Taylor. If you enjoyed what you heard, then please subscribe to this podcast and let us help you to get what you want out of business and life. Each week we release a new short episode which will give a success story and 3 takeouts to put into action immediately. These will help you take your business from good to great. The podcast is also supported by free resources, templates and useful tools which you can find at deborahchantrytaylor.com. I am a trained entrepreneurial leadership and business coach, a professional EOS implementer, and an established business owner myself. I work with established businesses to help them get what they want. Feel free to contact me if you'd like to have a chat about how I might be able to help you, or if you'd like to join me as a guest on this podcast. Thanks again to NZ Audio Editors for producing this podcast. See you on the next episode.